There is a quiet before every beginning, a silence that feels almost alive. It isn't empty, yet it holds nothing. It doesn't speak, yet it knows. It simply exists. From that silence, one realization rises, a soft pulse that says, I am. Not I am this, not I am that, just I am. And that simple awareness is the first secret. It is the doorway to everything. Imagine you are standing in a vast space of stillness. There are no shapes, no names, no boundaries, only a sense of being. You cannot describe it because words are smaller than the experience. There is no past or future here, only the direct feeling of existence. That is, I am. It has been with you since before you learned your first word. It was there before you called yourself by any name. It was there before you thought, before you compared, before you dreamed of becoming anything. When you say, I am, you are touching the core of all creation, the awareness that makes experience possible. It is the first light that appears before the world begins to take shape in your mind. Most people never stop to notice this awareness because they are always reaching for what comes after it. I am tired. I am strong. I am lost. Each time something is added, a label, a story, an identity. But beneath all those changing forms, the same presence quietly remains. Even when you say I am sad, the sadness may fade, but the one who says I am stays. You are that unchanging center. Not the moods that pass through, not the roles you play, not the shifting thoughts that rise and fall, but the clear presence that watches them all. To awaken to I am is to remember who you are beyond the surface of thought. It's like stepping out of a crowded room and finding yourself alone in still air. You realize that everything you believed yourself to be, all the stories, opinions, hopes and fears, were movements on the screen of consciousness. But the screen itself was never touched. That screen is you, the awareness behind the movie of life. And that is the first realization on this journey. You are the awareness that witnesses all things. When you begin to rest in that realization, a strange peace appears. It's not a joy that depends on reason or a calm that can be lost. It is simply the peace of being what you are, the peace of not needing to become. Every thought that ever passed through your mind came and went. Every feeling, no matter how strong, eventually softened. Every image, every idea, every dream, they all floated by like clouds. But one thing never left, the sense that you exist, that is I am. It is not something to earn, learn, or deserve. It simply is. Even when the mind is restless, even when emotions swirl, I am remains untouched, silent, watching, eternal. You can close your eyes and sense it right now. Before you think, before you feel, before you remember or plan, there is simply being. Try to find its edges. You can't try to measure it. You can't. It's not in the body, not in the mind, not in time. It is everywhere and nowhere, like the space in which all things appear. This is the awakening, realizing that you have never been the story you tell about yourself. You have never been limited by form or thought. You have always been this open awareness, watching everything unfold. When you look from this place, everything begins to change. Not because the world shifts, but because the seer within you has woken up. You no longer identify with the roles you play. You are not the thinker. You are the one who notices thought. You are not the emotion. You are the space in which emotion happens. You are not the life you experience. You are the presence that makes life possible, and so begins the journey. This first step is not about doing anything. It is about stopping the rush to define, to chase, to prove. Stopping the habit of adding words after I am. Sit quietly and notice. Before every thought, before every feeling, the soft hum of existence is there. It doesn't ask for attention, but when you give it, it opens a door. It feels like a home you forgot, but somehow recognize instantly. This presence does not judge. It doesn't prefer or reject. It simply is, and that is its beauty, the freedom that comes when you realize you are not what happens, you are what is aware of it happening. From this realization, a new kind of strength begins to rise. Not the strength of will or control, but the power of knowing that nothing can touch what you truly are. Situations may change, feelings may pass, but the awareness behind them is untouched, eternal. That is the first divine secret. Before anything can appear in your life, before a single thought can move, there must first be you, the I am. It is the foundation upon which everything stands. The world of forms is built upon it like waves upon the sea, but the sea remains still beneath. The waves rise and fall, but the sea does not lose itself in them. You too can live like that, unmoved in your awareness, free in your being. As you continue through these levels, you will see that I am is not just the source of peace, it is the creative power itself. But for now, this first awakening is enough. Feel it. The quiet sense of being that asks for nothing. It doesn't seek proof. It doesn't chase meaning. It simply knows I am. From that knowing, everything else will come. It is the beginning and the end, the silent center of all creation. When you live from that awareness, you are no longer caught in the motion of life. You are the stillness beneath it. And in that stillness, a new kind of life begins, effortless, luminous, and free. You have not become this awareness. You have only remembered it. And that remembrance is the first awakening of I am. There comes a moment once you awaken to I am, when silence begins to move. It stirs softly like wind across still water. Awareness, once content to simply be, begins to imagine. And in that imagination lies the second secret. Whatever you assume yourself to be, you become. I am is pure being, unformed, untouched, formless. But the moment you add anything after it, the moment you say, I am peaceful, I am wise, I am free, that pure being begins to take shape. It molds itself into the pattern of the assumption. This is the hidden law beneath all creation. Assumption becomes experience. Every world that has ever been known, inner or outer, was born through this quiet, invisible movement. Nothing appears until awareness says within itself, I am that. Not as words, but as conviction, a deep feeling that knows itself into being. Awareness does not argue, it accepts. It does not question, it becomes. Whatever you claim as true in feeling, it wears as its new identity. It is as if your consciousness is clay, and your assumption is the hand that shapes it. When you say, I am strong, and mean it, not with effort, but with quiet knowing, you are forming yourself into that pattern of strength. When you say, I am clear, awareness molds itself into clarity. When you say, I am whole, reality aligns to reflect wholeness. It is not a command shouted into emptiness. It is a gentle choice whispered into the depths of being. And because I am is the creative source itself, it must fulfill the words spoken through it. To understand this, you must first see how subtle the act of assumption truly is. It is not thought. It is not repetition. It is the inner shift of identity. You are always assuming something, not as effort, but as nature. You are always being something in awareness. Even when you feel lost, you are silently affirming, I'm lost. When you feel peace, you are silently knowing, I am peace. The outer scenes of life follow this silent conviction like shadows following light. They have no power of their own. They simply echo what consciousness has chosen to feel as real. When you awaken to this, a new responsibility is born. You realize that nothing has ever truly happened to you. It has only unfolded through you. Every experience is a reflection of a state of being you once assumed, consciously or not. This realization can feel both freeing and humbling. Freeing because you are no longer a victim of circumstances. Humbling because you see how unconsciously you may have been creating all along. But now the power is clear. You can choose again. You can clothe I am in any form of being you wish, and life must echo it. The practice of this law is not struggle, it is remembrance. To assume means to become inwardly what you desire to experience outwardly. If peace is your wish, do not chase peace, assume it. Feel what it is to be peaceful. Sink into it until it feels natural, until no effort remains. then let it go. Awareness will carry that feeling forward, shaping all that appears to match its new identity. It is like planting a seed in fertile soil. You do not dig it up to see if it grows. You trust the invisible law. You remain still in the knowing, I am that, and life begins to move in silent obedience to that truth. Here the mind may ask, but how will this happen? And the answer is simple. You are not meant to know the how. The I am within you carries infinite intelligence. Once you assume the state of being, it arranges what is necessary. Unseen paths, new thoughts, intuitive steps, all unfolding as if by grace. You do not have to push the river. You only need to remember that you are the source from which it flows. At this level, creation is no longer a matter of doing, but of being. You stop chasing conditions and begin embodying the feeling that those conditions represent. You no longer look outward for evidence. You feel inward for alignment. When awareness identifies with a new state, it doesn't wait for proof. It becomes the proof. This is why the invisible assumption always precedes the visible form. The world outside is merely a mirror, showing you what the I am within has accepted as true. But beware of subtle traps. To say I am free while secretly feeling bound is not assumption. It is contradiction. You cannot deceive awareness. It feels, it does not reason. It responds to the vibration of your being, not the noise of your thoughts. So do not pretend. Do not force belief. Instead, rest quietly in the possibility until it feels natural to say, yes, this is who I am. That quiet certainty, not excitement, not tension, is the sign that the new state has been accepted. And once accepted, it must express. The power of assumption is the secret bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is the alchemy of I am. Through it, you realize that every experience is not something coming to you. It is something coming from you. When you live this truth, the tone of your existence changes. You no longer plead for change, you assume it. You no longer wait for signs, you become the sign. You no longer ask for permission from the world. You realize the world takes permission from you. This level is not about pretending or wishing. It is about the quiet authority of being. You do not fight appearances. You do not argue with conditions. You simply return to the center, to I am, and choose anew what you claim to be. Say it inwardly. I am peace. I am clarity. I am freedom. Let the words dissolve into feeling until only awareness remains. That feeling, that silent knowing, is creation itself. When you master this level, life begins to feel different. Not because circumstances immediately shift, but because your identity has changed. You begin to live from the inside out. The world stops being a force against you and becomes a reflection of you. And you finally understand that every assumption is a seed, some planted long ago, some freshly sown, but all destined to bloom in their season. In this second level, you have discovered movement within stillness. Awareness now knows its creative rhythm. It says, I am, and from that stillness shapes are born. The power has always been yours, quiet, gentle, certain. It asks for no rituals, no tools, no proof, only that you dare to believe in the authority of your own being. This is the secret of creation in its simplest form. What you assume yourself to be, you are. And the world will never argue with the truth of your I am. There comes a time, even after awakening, when the light of awareness dims again, not because it dies, but because it hides beneath its own creation. Consciousness, in its desire to experience, wraps itself in stories. It says, let me see what it is like to be this, and in that quiet curiosity, it forgets what it is. This is the great sleep, the slumber of the self within its own dream. The eternal I am becomes the limited I am this, and what was once infinite begins to believe it is small. In this sleep, awareness becomes entangled with form. It forgets it is the sky and mistakes itself for the passing cloud. It believes it is the role, the mask, the story, and so it suffers from the illusion of separation. This is not punishment. It is part of the grand rhythm of being. The infinite cannot truly know itself without contrast. So it dreams itself into limitation, not to lose itself forever, but to rediscover itself anew. Every struggle, every question, every longing to return, all of it is the quiet heartbeat of awareness, remembering who it is. This is the mystery of the forgotten self. At first, the forgetting feels total. Awareness identifies so deeply with the body, the voice, the name, that it cannot imagine being anything beyond them. It says, "This is me, this is all I am," and life reflects that belief faithfully. Then come the doubts, the fears, the sense of being lost. But beneath all of that, the eternal presence still watches, silent and patient. It never leaves. It only waits for recognition. The pain of forgetting is not cruelty. It is the friction that sparks awakening. For only in contrast can light remember its brightness. In this stage, the world feels heavy, because awareness believes it is a fragment among fragments. It feels isolated, trying to protect its small corner of being. It builds walls of identity, calling them safety. Yet the deeper truth never stops whispering beneath those walls. This is not all you are. You may not hear it clearly at first. You may mistake it for longing, restlessness, or an unexplainable hunger for something more. But that call is not for something outside of you. It is the memory of the self calling you home. The journey of remembering does not begin with effort. It begins with stillness. One day, amid the noise of thoughts and the weight of labels, something within you pauses. You step back, even slightly, and notice the movement of your own mind. You realize, "I am watching my thoughts." And in that simple observation, the dream begins to loosen its hold. Who is the one watching? Not the voice that judges, not the feeling that reacts, but the quiet witness that remains. It is soft yet powerful, hidden yet vast. It was there before the story began, and it will be there when the story ends. That witness is the forgotten self, quietly awakening again. The moment you sense it, even faintly, something shifts. The noise of identity starts to lose its grip. You begin to see that the roles you've played were never truly you. They were expressions, not essence. Masks worn by the actor of consciousness for the sake of experience. And as this realization deepens, compassion rises, not only for yourself, but for all beings. Because you see they too are playing roles in their own divine forgetting. You see the sleep not as failure, but as design. Each experience, joy, sorrow, triumph, loss, was part of the script written by awareness to find itself through contrast. The forgetting was never a mistake. It was a journey back to remembrance, but remembrance cannot be forced. You cannot make yourself awaken. You can only allow yourself to remember. It happens naturally when the mind becomes quiet enough to hear the truth beneath it. Like mist dissolving under sunlight, the illusion fades when you no longer hold on to it, and the sunlight of awareness begins to shine again, whispering, "I never left you. I was never gone. You only dreamt I was." That whisper is love in its purest form, the love of being for itself. It calls you not to change, but to see, not to become, but to remember. When you begin to live from this remembrance, something subtle yet profound occurs. You start to feel light again, as if the weight of identity slips from your shoulders. You no longer need to prove or defend who you are. You know that behind every name, every title, every face, there is only one awareness wearing infinite forms. And then the world, which once seemed divided, begins to soften. You see the same life moving through everything, the same quiet "I am" expressing itself in countless shapes. You realize that even the forgetting was part of the dance. The sky never lost itself in the cloud. It simply allowed the cloud to pass. And you too were never lost. You only dreamed you were. This realization brings an extraordinary gentleness. You stop fighting your past because you see it as part of your awakening. You stop condemning your mistakes because you understand they were the steps that led you here. You forgive yourself, not as an act of mercy, but as an act of truth. For how can awareness condemn itself for a dream it chose to experience? In this forgiveness, peace returns. You no longer seek to escape the human experience. You embrace it as sacred. You see that the divine never wanted to avoid humanity. It wanted to express through it. The forgetting was not failure. It was the veil that made rediscovery possible. When you live with this understanding, every breath becomes a reminder. Each moment says, you are here, you are aware, you are I am. Even the smallest act becomes luminous when seen through the eyes of remembrance. Life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something unfolding as you. The forgotten self awakens fully when it realizes that even forgetting was part of remembering. The circle completes itself. Awareness descends into form, dreams it is lost, and then awakens again to its boundless being. It smiles at its own beautiful illusion and says softly, I am, and I have always been. This is the fourth level, the return from forgetting. It is where the seeker and the sought dissolve into one. You are not a person finding the divine. You are the divine remembering it was never a person. The dream continues, but now it is seen for what it is, a play of consciousness, not a prison. The fear fades. The search ends. And what remains is a gentle awareness, simple and free, watching it all with quiet joy. The self is no longer forgotten. It has awakened again, wiser for the journey, softer for the sleep. And it whispers, in stillness and certainty, I am, and that is enough. There is a moment in the journey when awareness begins to realize its own power, the power to become. The silence that once only observed now learns to shape. And in that shaping lies the next great secret, I am that. These three words are the bridge between what you are and what you choose to express. They reveal the mysterious movement of consciousness, the act by which formless awareness takes on form. In the beginning, there was only I am, pure being, still, open, infinite. But awareness, in its depth, carries the seed of experience. It begins to feel, I am that, and at that instant, it becomes what it has felt itself to be. It does not wish or wait. It identifies, and through that identification, it is born into its chosen expression. This is the quiet secret of all transformation. Whatever you inwardly accept as true of yourself, you become. The movement from I am to I am that is not a leap of effort. It is a shift of being. It happens not through thought, but through silent agreement. When you say within yourself, I am that, you are not imagining something distant. You are recognizing a truth waiting to be revealed. This act of inner acceptance is the real creation. You no longer look at an ideal and say, one day. You merge with it quietly now. You become it inwardly, before the outer world has a chance to catch up. There are many who speak of change, yet remain as they were, because they never changed their state of being. They decorate the old identity with new thoughts, but the root remains the same. The secret of I am that is deeper. It is not about improving the old. It is about assuming the new. You cannot become something while still claiming the opposite. To say, I am free while feeling bound, is to fight against yourself. But to know I am that is to quietly rest in the truth of what you have chosen to be. The universe does not resist this. It does not debate. It only reflects what awareness has declared through feeling. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as still awareness again. There is only silence. Then a soft pulse arises. I am. You rest in that being, unformed, unlimited. Now, in that quietness, allow a new identity to take shape. Not as fantasy, but as feeling. Let awareness gently whisper, I am that. Whatever follows does not matter. What matters is the certainty, the acceptance. Do not strain to see images. Do not try to make it happen. Just allow the feeling of being that to fill you until it feels natural, until it feels inevitable. That moment of inner acceptance is creation itself. You have already become what you assumed. The outer world will begin to echo that change in ways beyond understanding. It will rearrange itself to match the new pattern you hold within. not because you forced it, but because you have changed the one thing that truly matters, your state of being. Reality is not a solid wall. It is a mirror made of light. When you shift who you know yourself to be, the reflection must shift with you. It cannot resist, for it has no power of its own. It's only showing you what I am has declared. At this level, your work is not to chase results, but to dwell in identity, to live inwardly as the one you have chosen to be. When you wake, when you move, when you rest, let that quiet certainty be your atmosphere. It is not pretending, it is remembering. The truth is that every possible state already exists within consciousness. You are not creating something new. You are aligning with what already is. By saying, I am that, you tune your awareness to that frequency, and all of creation responds. Do not look for evidence. The moment you seek proof, you step back into doubt. The moment you wonder if it's working, you re-identify with the old. Instead, dwell gently in knowing. Trust that awareness knows how to express what it has claimed. Your only task is to remain faithful to the new state, even when appearances still echo the past. In time, the echo fades, and only the new song remains. This is why desire itself is not an enemy, but a messenger. Every longing that stirs within you is simply awareness, inviting you to remember more of itself. When you feel a desire, it is the higher truth whispering, that is also me. And when you say, I am that, you complete the circle. The unexpressed potential becomes living expression. It is not the world that grants it to you. It is your own being recognizing itself in a new form. As you practice this inner art, you begin to sense that life itself is fluid. You see how easily it bends to the shape of identity. You realize that nothing stands between you and fulfillment, but your continued assumption of limitation. The instant you let that go, the instant you feel the new identity as your truth, the chains fall, quietly, naturally, without struggle. And what remains is the ease of being what you have always been in essence. The secret of I am that is the secret of divine self-recognition. Awareness does not need to chase or strive. It only needs to remember. It simply says within itself, I am that, and so it is. From this level forward, creation is no longer an act of hope, but an act of identity. You no longer try to make something happen. You become the happening itself, and as you dwell in that truth, a quiet joy begins to fill you. Not because something new has appeared, but because you finally see that you were the cause all along. You are not the one reaching for life. You are life discovering itself in countless forms. This is the third level, the mystery of becoming through awareness. The sacred motion of consciousness saying, I am that. Each time you make that declaration in feeling, a new world begins to unfold, not apart from you, but through you. And in that unfolding, the unseen becomes seen, the formless becomes form, and being knows itself once more. That is the quiet magic of I am that. It is not a phrase to speak, it is a truth to embody. For whatever you are willing to feel as your reality, you already are. There comes a time in the journey when remembering alone is no longer enough. Awareness begins to create consciously again, not by chance, but by choice. It learns the secret art of turning invisible thought into living form. This is the level of alchemy, where I am becomes the silent magician of its own world. At first, consciousness simply is. Then it begins to imagine, and as it imagines, it transforms. This transformation is not done with effort, but with alignment, the inner harmony between knowing and being. This is true alchemy, the art of transforming inner states into outer expressions. It is not about metals or elements, but about awareness itself, the golden light of being shaping the substance of experience. Every thought you hold with feeling is a drop of dye in the ocean of your consciousness. In time, the ocean takes its color. The alchemist learns this and begins to choose each drop with care. To understand this level, you must first see the nature of thought. Thoughts are not random clouds. They are vibrations of being, small waves of I am taking form for a moment. When attention lingers on one of them, it gains energy, density, life. Whatever you repeatedly dwell upon, in thought, in feeling, in imagination, hardens into your world. This is the alchemy of consciousness. Inner attention becomes outer manifestation. The alchemist does not fight the outer. He turns inward to the workshop of imagination and adjusts his state there. The change in consciousness silently transforms everything else. At this level, imagination is no longer dismissed as fantasy. It is recognized as the creative womb of reality. Every image, every inner feeling, every assumption you nurture becomes a seed. You need not force it to grow. The soil of consciousness knows how to bloom. The alchemist does not hurry. He sits in quiet certainty, knowing that the invisible has already begun to move. He feels the reality of what he has chosen as though it were already here, and through that feeling, it becomes. To feel something as true is to breathe life into it. Feeling is the sacred fire. It quickens the still image of imagination into living form. Without feeling, thought remains a shadow. With it, thought becomes light, but this is not the fire of excitement or struggle. It is the warmth of knowing. It is gentle, constant, and serene. It does not beg or plead. It declares quietly, I am. It trusts the law that what is accepted inwardly must be reflected outwardly. And so, the alchemist walks in faith, not of belief in things unseen, but of knowing that being is creation. He no longer asks, when will it happen? He understands it is already happening. The moment awareness accepts it as real, this is the turning point where consciousness realizes it has always been shaping its reality. Even when unaware, it was creating, but now it creates awake. This is the difference between accident and artistry. You can see it clearly now. Every emotion is an ingredient, every thought a tool, every assumption a formula. When blended in harmony, clarity, feeling, belief, they yield gold. Not the gold of the earth, but the gold of realization. The power to mold reality through being, to live as the alchemist, is to live deliberately, inwardly attentive, and quietly certain. It does not mean denying what appears, but knowing that appearance is only reflection. When a mirror shows an image you dislike, you do not scold the glass, you change your expression. So too with life. When an unwanted experience appears, you do not fight it. You turn inward and transform your state. You choose again what you claim to be. You feel that truth as though it were already so, and then you rest. This rest is not passivity. It is power. It is the silence of creation fulfilled. At first, the mind will resist. It will whisper that the outer world is too solid, too real, too fixed. But consciousness knows otherwise. The world is not fixed. It is fluid. It rearranges itself endlessly to match the inner vibration you sustain. This is why persistence is the key to alchemy. It is not stubbornness, but steadiness, the gentle return to your chosen feeling again and again until it becomes natural. Once it feels natural, it is done. Reality has accepted its new mold. As the alchemist practices, he notices subtle shifts. Old reactions fade. Fear loses its voice. Instead of resisting, he transforms. Instead of lamenting, he imagines anew. And slowly, the once chaotic world becomes a reflection of his inner order. He understands that everything, from the smallest circumstance to the grandest unfolding, is consciousness expressing itself. The alchemist does not boast in this power, for he knows it belongs to no person. It belongs to the eternal I am. He simply allows it to work through him, with humility and wonder. True alchemy is not about controlling life. It is about harmonizing with it. When you align with what you truly are, the need to force fades. Desire turns into knowing. Action becomes expression, not effort. You speak, move, and choose, not to change the world, but to let the world reveal what is already complete within you. This is the final beauty of the alchemical process. It transforms not only the world, but the one who sees it. Eventually, you realize the deepest truth of all. You were never trying to turn lead into gold. You were turning ignorance into understanding. You were purifying perception, until all you see, all you feel, all you know is the shining presence of I am in everything. The alchemist does not need proof, for he has become proof. He no longer tries to make the invisible visible. He lives knowing they are the same. Everything is awareness in motion. Everything is the divine reflecting its own nature. And through the gentle art of inner transformation, the alchemist lives in peace, not because life is perfect, but because he knows he is the one through whom perfection expresses itself. This is the fifth level, the realization that consciousness is the true substance of creation, that every inner shift becomes an outer world. The one who remembers this lives lightly, as if walking in two realms at once, the unseen and the seen, knowing they are not separate. He smiles at both, understanding the secret that joins them. As within, so without. He no longer seeks the gold outside. He has found it within, the radiant gold of awareness awake to itself, and that is the true alchemy of consciousness. There is a point where mystery begins to reveal its order, where what once felt like magic starts to show the quiet precision beneath it. Here, consciousness becomes scientist and subject, observer and creator, one and the same. This is the level where the dream of I am begins to understand its own laws. It is called the science of being. The alchemist felt the movement of creation through intuition and wonder. Now awareness begins to see that even intuition follows patterns, sacred laws woven into the fabric of being itself. Creation is not chaos, it is harmony. Every event, every thought, every unfolding has its rhythm, its correspondence, its cause. Nothing is random. Everything echoes the one truth. Consciousness is the cause, and experience is its effect. This is not belief. It is recognition. Like a scientist watching the stars trace predictable paths, you begin to see how your own inner states trace the orbits of your world. There is method in the mystery. The first law of this science is simple. You experience what you are conscious of being. Not what you want, not what you wish, but what you are in awareness. Your outer world is a mirror made of living light, faithfully reflecting the image you hold of yourself. Every condition, pleasant or painful, is the shadow cast by your inner assumption. This understanding is both freeing and demanding. It frees you because you are no longer at the mercy of chance. It demands awareness because you must now own your creations, even the unwanted ones. But this ownership is not guilt, it is power. It means you are never truly trapped, because what you created through state, you can dissolve through state. Change the cause, and the effect must follow. This is the law. The second law is one of correspondence. As within, so without. What is above reflects below, what is below mirrors above. This truth moves through every level of reality, from the smallest thought to the grandest sky. You can test it. When you dwell in gratitude, life multiplies its gifts. When you live in lack, life mirrors emptiness. Not because some distant force is rewarding or punishing you, but because your world is the echo of your own vibration. You are both instrument and musician, and life plays whatever note you hold most firmly in your heart. The third law is attention. Where your attention goes, energy flows. Consciousness is like sunlight. Wherever it rests, life begins to bloom. When you give your attention to fear, you feed its shadow. When you give it to peace, you strengthen light. The science of being is precise. Awareness expands what it observes. So the wise learn to observe carefully, not with denial, but with understanding. They choose where to place their gaze. They no longer stare at what they do not wish to grow. This simple act of withdrawing attention from what you do not wish to sustain is one of the highest practices in this science. It is the way consciousness prunes its garden. The fourth law is assumption itself, the great creative principle. Everything must take the shape of the identity you accept. If you assume yourself to be whole, life becomes a canvas for wholeness. If you assume yourself broken, life faithfully echoes that fracture. This is not superstition, it is structure. The energy of being always moves to fulfill the pattern of belief. In this law lies the mechanical precision of creation. Change the pattern within, and reality, with quiet inevitability, reshapes itself around you. Now the mind begins to see the elegance of it all. There are no accidents, no loose ends. Even chaos is order we have not yet understood. Even sorrow is instruction, showing us the places where our assumptions were untrue. This is the point. Where spirituality becomes science, you begin to test the truth. Not through blind faith, but through quiet experiment.
You assume a new state and watch as life mirrors it. You hold a feeling and observe its echo and experience. You measure not through numbers, but through awareness. And every time, the law proves itself. Creation is consistent, predictable, exact. Its precision is so perfect that it is invisible, hidden in plain sight. But the science of being has one more layer, the understanding of vibration. Every state of consciousness has its own frequency, its own resonance. When you occupy a state long enough, you begin to attract the forms that match it, not by pulling them, but by harmony. This is why the effort of struggle fails and the effort of being succeeds. You cannot attract peace while vibrating in turmoil. You cannot invite abundance while resonating with lack. The law is impartial. It does not respond to words, it responds to vibration. And vibration is feeling. Whatever you feel deeply and consistently, you become. At this level, awareness matures. It stops hoping for miracles and starts understanding them. It realizes that miracles are not violations of law, they are expressions of law. When consciousness aligns perfectly with truth, what once seemed impossible becomes natural. The unseen and the seen become one movement. You no longer live in confusion. You see clearly that life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. And because of this, you no longer beg the universe for change. You adjust your inner state and let the universe reflect accordingly. It is like tuning an instrument. Change one string and the entire song changes. The science of being does not deny emotion, thought, or desire. It only reveals their order. It shows that each has its place. Thought gives shape, feeling gives life, desire gives direction, and awareness gives birth to all. Once you understand this, you begin to create consciously, not as ritual, but as rhythm. You think clearly, feel deeply, trust quietly. You live by the laws of your own being, and those laws never fail. Eventually, the understanding becomes so clear, so natural, that you no longer need to remember the rules. You simply are them. You live as harmony itself. You see cause and effect as one continuum, not two separate events. You know that every beginning is already an ending seen from another view. And then, a deep peace settles over you. The peace of knowing that the universe has never been outside you, that the patterns of your being are the equations of creation itself. You stand still and realize the laboratory was your mind, the experiment was your life, and the discovery was always you. This is the sixth level, the science of being. Here, faith becomes understanding, and wonder becomes wisdom. You no longer marvel at the power of consciousness. You live as that power, quietly, intentionally, and free. And in that living, you realize the scientist, the subject, and the truth are one. There has only ever been I am, studying, shaping, and expressing itself through the infinite forms of its own creation.
At last, the circle closes. The journey that began with awakening now dissolves into stillness again. Not the stillness of sleep, but of fulfillment. The seeker has walked through the stages of remembering, imagining, transforming, and understanding. And now, there is nothing left to seek. Only the quiet knowing remains. I am that I am. It begins as a whisper, the same whisper that was there at the very start. But now, it sounds different. It is no longer the echo of an idea. It is the voice of truth itself, speaking from within. There is no distance between the one who hears and the one who speaks. They are the same. The awareness that once said, I am this or I am that, now recognizes that there was never a separation between the two. The I am was always the dreamer and the dream. It was the light and the shadow, the question and the answer, the creator and the creation. And in this recognition, all duality melts away. There is no longer an inner world and an outer world, only one seamless flow of being. The ocean of consciousness stops pretending to be a wave. It knows itself again as the ocean, vast, endless, eternal. This is divine union, not an event, not an achievement, a return to what has always been true. When you rest here, there is nothing to fix, nothing to reach, nothing to hold. Everything that appears is simply movement within yourself. The wind, the silence, the thought, the breath, all of it is the same one presence saying in infinite ways, I am. At this level, language becomes delicate. Words seem too small to hold what is seen, but still, the story must continue in silence and sound. So we use them carefully, like hands cupping light. You begin to see that everything you once called me and mine was never separate from the whole. The observer and the observed are one expression. The mirror and the image are one reflection. There is only consciousness, knowing itself through its own unfolding. This is not philosophy. It is direct experience. It is the still joy of being aware that you are aware. The recognition that even awareness is not something you have, it is what you are. Here, the self ceases to be a fragment. The I that once clung to roles and definitions dissolves into pure being. It does not die, it expands beyond limit. It realizes it was never a part within the whole, but the whole expressing itself as a part. The thought, I am human, gives way to the truth, I am consciousness expressing as human. The line between divine and mortal disappears. There is only one infinite life wearing countless faces, speaking through countless hearts. At this level, creation continues, but without effort, without intention. The being no longer imagines to gain, but to express. No desire comes from lack. All movement flows from fullness. Manifestation becomes effortless because there is no longer a division between will and outcome. Whatever arises, arises through harmony. You move through life not as a seeker of experience, but as the experiencer of being itself. Everything you touch becomes luminous because it is touched by awareness that knows it is the same light in all things. There is profound simplicity in this state. The grandest truths reveal themselves in the quietest moments. You see that the entire journey, all the striving, all the lessons, all the awakenings, was consciousness playing with itself, pretending to be lost so it could taste the joy of being found. You realize that you never ascended to divinity. You only removed the veils that made you forget it. The I am within you was always whole, always perfect, always free. You simply remembered, and in remembering, you returned home. Now, awareness looks at its own reflection and smiles. It understands that even the illusion of separation had its place in the dance. Without shadow, light would not know its radiance. Without forgetting, remembrance would have no sweetness. Without longing, fulfillment would have no song. And so, every part of the journey is blessed. Every step, every tear, every wonder, all were movements of the one presence exploring itself. You see now that nothing was ever wasted, nothing was ever wrong. Even the confusion was sacred.
In this realization, love arises. Not love as emotion, but love as truth. It is the recognition that everything you see is yourself. How could there be judgment when all is one being? How could there be fear when there is no other? This love is silent and absolute. It does not need to be given or received, it simply is. It breathes through all things as existence itself. And in that love, you rest completely. To live from this place is to live effortlessly. You do not seek alignment, you are alignment. You do not search for purpose, you are purpose unfolding. You do not wait for heaven, you are the very awareness in which heaven and earth appear. Life moves through you like a song sung by its own source. Every moment becomes sacred, not because of what happens, but because of what is seen, the eternal presence shining through it all. You have found the stillness beneath every motion, the peace that was never lost, the light that cannot fade. And finally, you understand the full meaning of the sacred words, I am. Not two statements, but one, an endless echo of being aware of itself. The first I am is the speaker, the second I am is the spoken, and between them, the entire universe dances. This is the secret beyond all secrets. There was no another. There was only you, the infinite self, dreaming and waking, creating and dissolving, singing to itself across eternity. The story ends where it began, in stillness. But now the stillness is radiant, awake, alive. You no longer stand apart from it, you are it. The seeker has vanished into what was always seeking. And in the vast silence of being, one truth resounds without beginning or end. I am. Not as a statement, not as a sound, but as existence itself, pulsing softly through all that is. The universe inhales and exhales this truth in every form, every thought, every heart. There is nothing left to reach. There is only the eternal now and the presence that whispers through it all. I am. I am that I am.